Good afternoon. Welcome to the Healthy Indoors live show. I'm your host, Bob Krell. I'm the founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors magazine, and I'm happy you're able to join us here on this fine Thursday in June. Um, Today's show will be kind of two-pronged. We have a provocative title that we would like to discuss with our two guests here today. And then we'll talk a little bit about an upcoming event that is really exciting. We just signed on as one of the sponsors to it. It's Healthy Buildings 2021 America. It's the ISIAC conference. It's being hosted by CIRI in Honolulu, Hawaii, November 9th through 11th this fall. So with us today, joining us here for the show, are our two esteemed people from the industry. First, in no particular order, but the first one I'll say because I've known him longer, is Dr. Richard Shaughnessy. He served as the director of the University of Tulsa's Indoor Air Quality Research Program in the Chemical Engineering Department since 1987. And his studies have focused on particulate research, air cleaner evaluation, indoor chemistry school studies, asthma and housing research, and resolution and remediation of bioaerosol related problems, and many more things. He's really been an industry icon for quite some time. Richard and I met back, I think, in 1990s, so going way back there, and we'll have some banter about that. He also served as he was a past president of ISIAC, and he is the co-chair of this upcoming Healthy Buildings America event. So also joining us today is John Downey, who is a veteran of more than 45 years in the cleaning and disaster restoration industry. He's the executive director of the Cleaning Industry Research Institute, CIRI, and CIRI is the host organization of ISIAC's Healthy Buildings 2021 America Conference, which we just mentioned. So yeah, with that, so gentlemen, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Bob. Great.
So what I would like to do is also, welcome and acknowledge our moderator for the show and co-host today, Susan Valenti. She's the editor of Healthy Indoors magazine, and she's on board with us to actually probably pose some questions. I know she likes to do that. So. I guess let's start out with the first topic. I mean, you guys saw the title of the show. Our first question here really was, is there really a disconnect in the industry between the research community and the practitioners in the field, the consultants and the people actually performing services? And I think perhaps there's no question there. We know that there is some sort of a disconnect, and is that something that now is more of a concern for us, and how will we address that? So I guess I'll put that out there to you guys. Are we actually dealing with a situation that needs to be improved?
Richard, you want to go first? Or you want me to give it a shot?
Go ahead, John.
Well, first of all, I come from a little bit different area of the industry, professional cleaning or carpet cleaning and disaster restoration. And I will tell you from the vantage point of that part of the industry, there's not just a disconnect, there's a nearly complete lack of awareness about the amount and type of research that is being done, especially among academic researchers, that are relevant to indoor air, indoor environments, cleaning directly and indirectly. It is, and frankly, me being somebody in the industry for 45 plus years, until a couple years ago, I didn't realize it. I mean, I was shocked to find out there was as much going on in that area as there is. So disconnect, I kind of describe it as two ships passing in the night. But one thing I really have realized, and it's a big reason why I am involved with CIRI, is that there is an interest among the people in the academic community in working with people who are practitioners, contractors. Not everybody, a lot really are fine not knowing we exist, but there is a critical core of people. Richard, probably the longest serving one of those, who understand that what we do is important, and what they do can really be helpful to what we do.
Interesting point. Richard, do you want to take a run at that one?
Yeah, I mean, there is a disconnect. There's always been a disconnect, Bob. I mean, when ISIAC started about 30 years ago, the people that started it, Jan Sundell, Oli Seppänen, John Gurman, Phil Morey, for the most part, they were researchers, scientists. Now, Phil Morey, very much an exception to that, but although the mission has always been for the International Society, which is made up of 40 countries plus members, the focus is always really, in between the lines, they say it is to deliver the information to the population. Really, it's been more generating research and looking into the scientific aspect, and that's gone on for a long time. As I joined ISIAC, I made deliberate efforts to try and bring those two groups together. And I can say that with COVID, really it's kind of forced our hand. And by that, I mean, there is an absolute need that researchers connect. And there was information being asked for that they, we're talking about applied science that they had to come through with. And so that has changed somewhat the landscape, and I think in that aspect for the better.
So, I mean, do you see that that maybe some sort of a paradigm shift, or at least a partial paradigm shift during the pandemic over these past, we're looking at like 13, 14 months now. Is that something that's going to stick? I mean, do you think that there's going to be more of a push toward getting applied research applications that actually will be impactful in the field, for practitioners in shorter order? Because, I mean, it seemed like there used to be a very long lag between some of the research that occurred and any of it getting distilled down to being actionable out there in the real world. Is that something that we're going to experience a little bit more accelerated pace going forward?
Well, I believe so, because as a researcher and scientist, often it's you follow the money, and for better or worse. So therein is why, you read part of my bio and why I've been involved with so many different facets, because there's funding available in different pockets, and it's not plentiful. But with COVID, I think funding is loosened up a bit, and with that, the outcomes, the goals, what the funding is trying to attain is more applied, practice oriented, so that researchers are, they're not forced to, but they're doing more work that is directly applicable as opposed to years going forward.
I mean, there's certainly a place for both, right? I mean, you'll always have the more focused, dedicated research that's not really on the applied side, right? That's still a valuable aspect of what goes on. I mean, that's the precursor in a lot of ways. But yeah, hopefully, we do see that, because I think, being on the practitioner side, I've been there 35 years. And I had a little, I got to dip my toe in some research work with EPA on the HVAC hygiene study back in the 90s. So I got to see the other side of the fence, at least for about a year. And it was amazing to me that even in that limited study that I was involved with, some of the researchers from RTP, they really didn't have a clue at what was happening out in the field. They were laboratory people, and it was fascinating to me that we'd get out there and in the field and to try to do the pilot study, and it'd be like, whoa, this isn't the way it should be. I'm like, yeah, but this is the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been fortunate, I guess, to be able to cross that line. I mean, I went with a team of EPA researchers to China back in 1995, and we studied dwellings that were bored into the side of mountains, cave dwellings, if you will, and so and learned a great deal about the indoor environment at that time, and that how it can immediately impact health to the detriment.
Somebody's dog is barking, but that's okay. You know, that's the thing with live broadcasts. I mean, we have that, you know, I mean, we actually don't have that here in the studio because we really, you know, I don't allow my pit bulls to run wild here, but so so with that, John, you know, with CIRI, just give us a quick overview of some of the initiatives that CIRI's involved with, you know, as a, you know, a research organization, or at least you know, an organization in the cleaning space.
So thank you, Bob. When you ask a question about the long lag between research and practice, to some extent, CIRI's job is to shorten the distance. I describe CIRI as like a connective tissue between research and practice. And I think it's important that there be an organization, maybe there will be at some point multiple organizations that will be involved in doing that. But as I mentioned when I first commented, I was surprised at how receptive, when I first got involved with some of the research scientists, just how receptive they were to the people on the practice side, what they do, how they do it. Like your experience, you know, back in the 90s, it's still the same now. So I think that's an important part of it. As far as what CIRI does, I mean, we have research scientists who are on both CIRI's executive committee, and we also have a science advisory council. Richard is on the science advisory council. I think he's been on since CIRI began, which was in 2005 or 2006. So, you know, we have that element, but the people we serve primarily are practitioners, whether it is contract cleaners, disaster restoration contractors, mold remediation contractors. All of those are, you know, basically in our wheelhouse. We would like to basically bring the cleaning industry into a position where it is it is informed by the science. And I think if we can do that, we will make some pretty large strides forward in terms of outcomes.
I mean, you could make that argument that almost every vertical in the indoor environmental industries, you know, the collective industries, and there's so many verticals, you know, we could go down the line, you know, point by point, chemicals, asbestos, everything. I think there's, in my opinion, again, I've been in the industry for a bit, since the mid 80s. It still does seem like there's a pretty big disconnect. I've always felt that way, that, you know, we'd go to the typical conferences we'd attend, and there would always be some academic-esque presentations, even at practitioner conferences, and there'd always be some fascinating information, but I would never see that ever getting, you know, very often brought out into the mainstream. You know, and so, you know, to that end, obviously, we'll be in a little bit later here, we'll be talking about the event that you're both involved with, that is hoping to actually bring about a change in that aspect.
And you know, Bob, I totally agree with that. I mean, when you bring together, a few years ago, we did this on behalf of the EPA. We brought together and on behalf of the Sloan Foundation, some of the top researchers in the country and some of the top practitioners. And it was almost like they were talking two languages. I mean, it really was. And it's unfortunate that the scientists knew what they were doing, but the practitioner was looking at it going, well, how does that help me? And the scientists really didn't understand what the practitioners are doing in the field. And this had to do with moisture and bioaerosol related problems. And a lot of the scientists didn't really know a lot about IICRC standards. So that, in a nutshell, tells you, if you don't know the S500 or the S520, or you don't know what practitioners have to follow, how can you serve them? And it was an eye opener. It really was.
I mean, this is clearly a bidirectional issue, right? I mean, it's because the research community really does need that feedback from the field, right? From the practitioners. I mean, there's as a researcher, you'd agree, right? There's a value in actually getting that input to help you decide, especially for applied research, right? I mean, it's critical, isn't it?
Yeah. And ISIAC, in to its to their own benefit, I guess, but also for the whole, the entirety, you've got to give them credit because they have moved the Journal of Indoor Air. It now, with respect to every article, it has practical implications at the onset of the article. So they're trying to make those strides, but it's a slow process. It really is.
I can see that being challenging. So Susan,
the issues related to a lot of that research to practice are things that are really, I think they can be, well, part of it is integral to what researchers do. They kind of, in any given research project, it's narrow and deep. Just necessarily that's the way research is done. Although practical research can be done otherwise. Whereas what we do in the field is relatively shallow and wide. And so that is, that's going to be a continuing challenge. But what I have noticed is, at least among the researchers that I've dealt with, is a very strong desire that the work that they're doing be more relevant. And the work that they've done in the past they thought it was more relevant than it actually was. As Richard said at that conference in Orlando, that was probably one of the best takeaways from the conference, was that there was a disconnect that I think, especially among researchers, they didn't recognize that it was there. They didn't realize. So it means it can mean a lot.
I mean, there's certainly always there's been dialogue. I've got to throw this out there because for better than a decade now, and I'd say more like 2 decades, that phrase research to practice and various derivations of that have been thrown around there. And yeah, there's been some purported things to do that, and nothing against the events that have happened. I know there's a bunch of event centric conferences and stuff that in that realm. But has there really thus far, I mean, just being honest here, has there really been a great reach across the aisle between the practitioner and the researchers to date? Or would you think that it's still lacking?
I think it's still lacking, but I'm not sure that when I say it's still lacking, I'm not sure that the problem is a lack of desire. Is a lack of awareness to some extent. As I said, I don't know that, at least in my part of the industry, how much they know about what the other is doing or their world, that they're in parallel universes. But that's where a conference like this comes in. And as I said, pitching my organization, CIRI, that's what our purpose is. Our purpose is to help build that bridge and make it more than just a conference that, when it's over, there are papers that go out from it, there's proceedings from it, and then on to the next thing, and everything else is forgotten. I am very determined, and I think Richard knows this, and ISIAC knows this because they accepted our proposal.
Mhm.
That isn't what, that is, the status quo is not acceptable to us.
Okay.
There's an opportunity here that we really would like to uh, make it a turn, I guess. Kind of a bit of a paradigm shift.
I mean, this clearly is there's an opportunity now, and we've mentioned this numerous times on our show over the past year, with the pandemic, right? It's acutely focused everybody, people in the industry, but even end consumers, right, globally, on indoor environmental topics. People are focused on that, partially scared, partially confused, partially angry, a combination of all that. But there's the attention span's there, but we all have, as humans, have a short attention span. So we have to capitalize on this opportunity now.
Yes, I agree.
Hey, John, I'm going to throw out a question. Can we just like go back to basics, and can you give me a good definition of like what is a researcher in this industry and what is a practitioner? Because I think, sometimes lack of awareness goes back to the beginning, and like we don't know who's playing what role.
So let's start with researchers. For the most part, researchers come from academic institutions. They're doing research that is academically oriented. It's commissioned by government or perhaps other organizations such as Sloan, and I'm not sure exactly who all of them are. There, and that's the group that at least my part of the industry has missed. I guess that's the best way I can say it. Didn't recognize all that was being done. The other researchers are the people who do research for companies that manufacture and sell equipment and systems, and the tools that are used by practitioners. And there's some great research there, and we never see it because that's being done for product development purposes. They don't want to. They're just not going to share a lot of their information with. They aren't going to share any of their information if they can help it with competitors. They just don't see that as a worth as a good investment. And that's the focus that I've had in the past, was on trying to get that, and get that research out there, get them to divulge some of that information. It's just not happened. Practitioners, from my world, it's professional carpet cleaning, it's disaster restoration, floods, fires, smoke, it's mold remediation. CIRI also, really when it started, it was involved primarily with contract cleaners, commercial cleaners, janitorial companies. And really with you all, you focus on, lead and asbestos, and as well as mold and other areas on indoor environments. So that's a very, the practitioners are a very diverse world.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, the sectors that that we deal with, and yeah, it's broad. There's just a ton of verticals.
Right.
So we lost Richard, and again, the joys of live broadcast. So we're working to get him back in the discussion here. So let's, Susan, are you okay for me pivoting over to the conference?
Oh no, I was about to say, let's do that.
It's time to pivot to the conference. So Healthy Buildings 21 America is taking place, as we mentioned earlier, this November 9th through 11th in Honolulu, Hawaii, which is fairly exciting. And you've got a deadline coming up that's kind of important right now, John, right?
Yes.
Call for presentations is about to run out, the time for that.
Next Monday at midnight, the individual abstracts are due. Abstracts can be for oral presentations or poster presentations. And, we know, in fact, we're already getting, actually our response so far has well exceeded our expectations. But what is important, we suspect, frankly, we don't know because it's still in a kind of a closed system. We probably could access it, but haven't tried to because we're out here talking to you. But we suspect that the abstracts that have been submitted are primarily research-oriented abstracts, which is ISIAC's world, and that's what they always do. In order for this conference to be successful, we need to get participation from practitioners, including abstracts, presentations from practitioner perspective. And that's why we scheduled this show for now. Should have done it probably sooner, but that's on me.
Yeah.
But,
But you and also comment, you and Richard are making the rounds too. You're going to appear on IAQ Radio tomorrow. So that's right. Another show that you'll be discussing more aspects about this, and right. Not unlike people on tour for their latest movie, which makes it makes sense. You really need to go out there and really rake the industry, because as you mentioned, the ISIAC events have a tendency to very readily draw academic people and researchers, right? No problem there. They're going to draw plenty of people, but it's maybe a little bit more of a pull to get practitioners to go to that type, to that type of event. What it's traditionally been, it's been more of an academic event, and this one clearly is being billed as one that's both academic and practitioner.
Exactly, and as far as, but the form of it is going to be a academic conference, which probably 80 to 90% of the academics who attend the conference are also presenting at the conference. In a practitioner conference, a handful, maybe 5% of the people that attend are also presenting. So people are used to attending and just to go and watch. And I'm not saying that practitioners shouldn't do that, and they'll get a ton of value out of that in the social interactions, the networking, and the back and forth with people coming from a different world, if you will. But what will really make this conference successful is if we also get presentations from practitioners. That would be practitioner presentations. And one of the things, and honestly, I feel responsible that I have not really, I recognized it, but did not focus on it until very recently. And that is that practitioners, they don't do research. And they may think that, coming to this conference and doing research, well, they don't have any research to do, or, are they supposed to throw something together and pretend that they're a research scientist? That in the way, that type of research wouldn't work. For one thing, it would be inferior and would be shown to be inferior because they're trying to do what they don't do. But what is really relevant, important, and practitioners can do is they can develop presentations based on the research that is done in business every day. And that is troubleshooting, figuring out, encountering problems, figuring out solutions. And then, so a researcher-based presentation would be based on basically, you could go look at COVID as an example. All sorts of problems developed, if you will, or challenges developed as a result of it. I mean, go or no go in terms of doing the work, PPE, worker safety, and things like that. What were you encountered with? How did what was the process you followed in order to develop a solution? And then what was the solution that you had, and how did it work out? And honestly, I would love to see some some practitioner presentations where they talk about not just successes, but maybe failures. This is what we ran into. This is, this is the approach that we took, and it fell short in these ways. And by doing that, I think that would be incredibly valuable to the researchers there who could see that world. That's where I think this will be an unusual conference for researchers if we can get more practitioners to participate, because hearing things directly from practitioners will, in a way that they are not going to get through any other vehicle, it will enable them to understand the world of the practitioner, the world of the contractor, whichever the particular discipline. We're talking indoor environments and various ways that we clean different aspects of those environments, whether it's air, surfaces, etc. You can tell I kind of get excited about that.
Yeah, but rightly so, though. And that's the thing.
Hey, Bob, I think that we have a ton of questions in the chat, so I think we should open everything up and.
I don't disagree.
And hit poor John all alone with a bunch of questions. So.
Okay, so I want you to know Shaughnessy's in big trouble. We're
trying to get him back in via telephone, just so you know. He lost his internet, so we're trying to get him to call back in right now.
Yeah, and actually, I looked on my phone. I could see what was.
Down in Tulsa, it's possible that there's tornadoes, right? Not to make light of that, but it happens, right?
It does, and this is the time of year where it happens.
I know.
Yeah, Richard is a tornado, so.
Oh, that's awful.
Oh, it's right.
All right, so we're gonna ask. So the audience, why don't we start taking a few questions here? Susan, do you have them in any order? I know you're dual mode in here.
Yeah, let's go with Marianne Heyman first.
Marianne, you can open up your microphone and your camera if you'd like, and pose the question directly.
Great. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Great. I'll see about the camera. I don't know. We'll see if it works. Oh,
there you go.
Okay.
Look at that.
So I'm very interested in this topic because I've long been a proponent of IICRC and, of course, the many iterations of Siri. I actually didn't know how to pronounce it, though. So thank you for telling me that. And I do agree that the problem is that the researchers and even customers, state officials, don't know what IICRC is, what Siri is. So the difficulty that we find ourselves in constantly is we know the science, we study the science, we follow the research. We get into the real world, we have projects going on, and contractors are hired that are clueless. They've never even heard of your organizations. They're not using any science. Or if they're using what they think is science, it's junk science. So we need to get much better at educating contractors. I would like to know, how can we do that? I've been doing this job for well over 30 years. And I've been having this conversation not only with contractors, but with consultants as well. We need to educate them. We need to make these connections so that people are doing the right thing. I mean, the fact that contractors don't know what S500 or 520 are is shocking to me. But yet that's what we're left with.
It surprises me. Marianne, what is your business? What is it that you do?
So I am a state indoor environmental quality official. I see every aspect, and I mean every aspect of indoor environments. Everything from, mold happens to be a specialty because I also am a former clinical mycologist. I deal with Legionella cases, the engineering side of the house. I get questions from everybody from school facilities directors to municipal facilities directors about these crazy devices that people want to sell. Should we buy these? Do they work? It runs the gamut. It runs the gamut. And, we know there are definitely contractors that know what they're doing and that are good. But unfortunately, they're few and far between in many geographic areas.
Unfortunately, I know you're right. And you're right that, honestly, what has been, this is a little bit different than what you're talking about. I don't expect who or what Siri is. Because of the type of organization, there's going to be a particular niche that's going to be interested in what Siri does. And, we're not going to have massive membership. We just won't. But what has disappointed me, and it kind of is related to what you're talking about, is that thus far, since I've been involved with Siri, which is about 3 years, we've had very little interest. There are exceptions, but we've had relatively, I'll say relatively rather than very little interest on the part of trainers and educators and in consultants, the people that should be wanting to know this information, the people that really do need it, because they're the ones who the information ultimately will reach the larger industry through. So for me, that's my first challenge. How do I get the people that are doing IICRC training courses to get involved in Siri and participate with some of these scientists? How do I get other consultants and trainers and indoor air industry in that? And actually, there's more people involved from that perspective than there are from the IICRC. But it is, I understand the challenge, and really all we can do, and what Siri is doing, and one of the things we're doing is we're trying to develop a program where we can provide really good, useful information that people that do train the frontline people can take. The frontline worker is not going to read a science paper. They just aren't going to do it. And if they read it because they were forced to, they're not going to understand it. But you can take a science paper that has lots of good, useful, and verified information, and you can boil it down to the important things that the end user needs, the frontline worker. And that's really who we're ultimately, Siri feels its mission is only going to be successful if the information that we have finds its way to those frontline workers. It's a process. I wish I could say that I saw an easy way there, or that Healthy Buildings is going to solve everything. It won't work that way. But it is, it's like most things in life. You take 2 steps forward, you take a step back, and then you move forward some more until you make a difference. I don't think I'll be alive when the time comes that all of this is solved, if it ever is. But I'm going to do as much as I can, as best as I can, while I'm around.
Well, one suggestion could be to have your group perhaps partner with IICRC and maybe similar organizations, because we have to reach a broader network. We have to. It's just so critical. And the other thing that I always have to say this is, you might think about hiring a health educator. I am not a health educator, by the way, but I work with many of them and they've taught me their tricks. So, we know how to take complicated information and make it understandable to, I'm sorry to say, an 8th grade reading level. This is what we're told.
That's right. It is what it is. If we deny it, and if we try and deliver information that's too high, it's even if it's delivered, it's not going to be heard. To answer your question,
we have Richard back, by the way, just to let you know, on audio. He's in on telephone.
You're in big trouble, Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
All
right. Well,
one last comment. what you're talking about as it relates to partnering with organizations like IICRC, ISIAC is another one, and other organizations and that are trade associations working directly with contractors and frontline workers. That is a big part of what we're trying to accomplish. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but that is exactly what we're working on.
So
Well,
Jorge, we have you as the next question. If you would like to get your camera up and unmute yourself. I hope you pronounce your name Jorge. I didn't mispronounce it. I took a guess at that one. We have your audio. You can speak.
I'm George Mihails.
It's George.
Is
I'm
it my
sorry.
turn?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations for this very relevant and timely event. I'm French national. I just moved to United States. And since 2005, my partner and friend, we have been involved in developing and applying technologies for indoor environment from schools, residences, surgery rooms, and so on. We accumulated about 100 trials. We partnered with research institution. If you're familiar with Norway, SINTEF is the most relevant research institution in Norway. So we covered also like disaster restoration, Holocaust Museum in Prague after floods. Also, we have been involved in litigation when a construction company and tenant, they wanted to understand where the problems are about orders and so on. All this made me think that probably United States should be, and I moved myself to United States, might be a development platform and market for us. So my first question is, again, I'm very impressed by how genuine the issues you underline here, and we confronted all of them. Inviting style sometime really to deliver for 10 schools in Oslo area or university hospital surgery room in Oslo, where the surgeon had problem, headache, and so on. So we had to identify what contaminant caused this. And in all cases, we have been successful. But the issue you raise here, like researchers versus practitioners, and also standards, there are no standards really in this industry. But so my first question is, if you think we are welcome to give presentation at Hawaii conference, and whatever other suggestions, I will send you my coordinates. As I said, I'm in Washington, D.C. area, and I'm sure there are more questions and answers in our work, but after over 100 trials on one hand, there's an impact, a need, confirmed for the last 15 years, but how to go from there to serve, like you mentioned, cleaning companies, and we had to solve problem with cleaning companies because surgery room or other cases. So you mentioned carpet cleaning, disaster restoration. It's so relevant to us. I mean,
do you have a particular question? I don't mean to cut you off, but we've got to get through.
First question: Hawaii is for how we welcome my partners and I to the Hawaii conference, and if yes, I would appreciate your advice. And second, with whom should I have a first approach contact? Because all this is years of experience. So
John, I'll let you take that.
Okay, so I got the first answer to that question is, of course, we want you at the conference. It sounds like you have a very to my mind, very interesting and unique perspective on these items. And you've come from, did you say Norway, or I'm not sure?
Yeah.
All of you.
We are mainly based in Norway, but and our project have been in Norway, Sweden, and Prague, the Holocaust Museum. We conducted others, but this is a real project.
Okay, and my thought is, you have some specific, now the one thing about it is these types of the presentations, especially if it is in an oral presentation, are relatively short. And some of these sound like they may be fairly involved projects, but the presentations themselves are typically only run about 10 minutes. So you would have to find a way to basically develop an abstract that would be focused, and you could submit several abstracts based on different projects. That as I'm listening to you, that's what I'm kind of getting, is you've got some different and interesting projects. You've worked with some different types of businesses, and you could generate some pretty interesting. I think you've generated pretty interesting information that could.
John.
We have a machine, several machines up and running in Norway.
Okay.
So we can have also a demonstration, remote demonstration. Organization United States might ask, I've already asked, like MIT, to give a demonstration, but because of COVID, and we could not do it. So not to keep you too long, I would appreciate maybe if I can contact someone.
We can reach out to you. Yeah, what we can do is we have your contact information here, and we'll make sure that the organizers reach out to you via email after the show. Don Weeks, are you able to bring your camera on and ask your question? We have you queued up next, and right behind that is Carl Grimes. So get ready to go, Carl.
I always like to be ahead of Carl. Nothing else other to say than that. I can't get the video up because you guys are blocking it, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's no big deal. I've been following the healthy building stuff for a long time. Hello. I actually went to the first healthy buildings back in 1991, I think it was. These are great conferences. They really are intended to be, always were intended to be, but never got to be as much about research to practice as they should have been. And so what I'm looking at, look, it's just a typical reaction to many small businesses. You want to go where for a conference? It's in Honolulu, Hawaii. Sure, you're going to be really, top notch, right into the middle of, the Hawaii Waikiki Beach. Nothing wrong with that. I plan to be there, by the way, and I hope a lot of people do go. However, I think John and Richard, you probably know what I'm going to say because you might have heard the chat already. I do think you need to look at doing something at least partially virtual. That will attract many of the smaller contractors, the smaller consultants, practitioners who aren't really able to do a trip like that. They just can't.
Yeah.
And it makes some sense to do something a little bit more virtual. So Richard, I'll let you speak.
Yeah. We're doing, Don, you might understand. We're trying, this is we're pushing face to face, and there's a reason for that. We've settled back, we've become isolated to some extent. And I don't know about you. As far back as 1991, the first indoor air conference, in Toronto, everything I've gained is from not in the sessions, but outside the sessions. Talking to researchers, my meeting, other top researchers, practitioners, you get that exchange going. So that's really what we're focused on. We do have one track being offered during the conference, but it will be a condensed track. It'll be one track throughout the conference. So you're not going to be able to take all that in. And in addition, There is a research to practice reception. There are workshops related to research to practice. The oral presentations and sessions are going to be geared, many of them practice related. You know, it is just so much value to being there face to face. So yes, we are trying to serve to a limited extent, but in the grand scheme of things, we want people to come back out of their shell. And I think many people, they're ready for that, to get back out and exchange those ideas, because there's been so much that's gone on. And it's very difficult to convey it as we're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Richard and I have known each other about 30 years. So I would say that we served on the ISAC board of directors together. So I understand where he's coming from. And Richard, I appreciate where you're saying person to person. There is a great deal of value on that. There's also a great deal of value of hearing, over the internet, these types of conversations that we're having right now, and other types of presentations that are out there. So I hope that there's a balance, and then in the future that there may be a little bit more of a live streaming and perhaps some recording too of sessions, so that people can get the information out there. So thank you for all you do, Richard. Thank you, and you too, John. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Don.
So next up, thanks Don. We have Carl Grimes coming up next.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to ask my question. And whether I follow or lead with Don Weeks, it's always a pleasure. So the point that I want to make is that I think I've been talking to a number of practitioners recently too, and there's something that's come up that I think it kind of answers the questions that Miriam was talking about and everybody else is here. The difference between researchers and practitioners is a little more complicated than just that. It's also field practitioners. And the way I would describe it is that researchers in the context of funding, get to define their tasks. They get to select what they're going to do. Practitioners, particularly of research, pretty much get to choose the research that they want to apply, oftentimes in a company or a corporate or something like that. But a field practitioner is very, very different. The first thing they don't get to select their specific task. First thing they have to do is that when they walk into a situation, whether it's routine carpet cleaning, other cleaning, or disaster restoration, water damage, mold assessment, whatever, the first thing they have to do is figure out what is going on. What is there? And that's something that that even the IICRC S520, they tell you what to do, but there's very little out there about how to figure out what to do, how to identify conditions. Then they have to select which research to apply, assuming they'll aware the research. So I see this conference in a large extent of supplying information to practitioners, but then they have to figure out how to apply it.
So
and
there is a question here though, right, Carl? I mean,
yeah,
okay.
The last point that I want to make is how is the conference going to create the connection so that it's not one way of research teaching practitioners? How do practitioners teach research about the real world?
Now there's the question.
Okay. And we're facilitating that through, and Don, I forgot to mention as well, we have short courses where we're bringing together the short courses focused on research to practice. There'll be exchange there. There's going to be workshops, Carl, as you know, you're going to be involved with.
Right.
We'll be talking about that. We'll be bringing that together. And the only way is to get people to converse face to face. And that's what the conference is all about. It truly is. So what you're saying, but it's probably a longer conversation than what we could get into right now.
Right.
Well, I was gonna, if I could just add also, just briefly, and I kind of talked about it when I made my big pitch for practitioner abstracts. that's really how the researchers, if we can get a critical mass of researcher-based practitioner-based abstracts that are focused on the real world. They don't have to be fake research abstracts. They're business, we don't realize it, but we're doing research every day in our business. It's called problem solving. And so I think that is an important element in how we can make that connection. And
That's a great point, John.
I hate to
That's
say school the researchers, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Well, but it's not even so much schooling, it's just exposing them to the other side of the coin, because again, if and not to, point anything, but if you spend your time on just on the research on a more of a laboratory side of things, you don't necessarily understand how things really happen on the planet, out in the real world, because things are not built the way they're supposed to. They're not built to spec. People don't follow instructions. There's failures that you can't possibly anticipate out in the field. So.
Yeah, completely agree.
So
and John's point is very important, Bob. We need the practitioner input. We want those abstracts. Otherwise, scientists are talking into a void, and that void is echoed back. So don't be intimidated in any way in putting together a short abstract. This is not difficult. Be a part of the conference on some level. Get this conversation going. That's really what we're striving for. And without the practitioner input, I feel like I've failed, and we don't want to do that.
And also we need to remind our viewers, especially those who are watching it after the broadcast and not in the virtual audience seeing the live chat here, that you can get more information about this upcoming Healthy Buildings 2021 America event, which is again taking place in Honolulu, Hawaii, November 9th through 11th. At the website is hb2021-america.org. So, and you can see that up on your screen. So that's the website to get to. And again, the call for abstracts closes on June 7th, correct?
Yes, Monday at midnight.
Yeah. So you still have the weekend. Again, you can go to that website and go to the submissions tab there and get access to your submission process. And it's not that complicated, right?
No, it really isn't. I mean, that's one of the things I think from a practitioner perspective, it can seem kind of intimidating. And that's why I want to emphasize, you don't realize how much you have already in terms of information, and just focusing on a problem, an issue, how you addressed it, why you addressed it that way, and the result from it. It's as simple as that. And we don't call it a paper for a science conference, but in our normal business, but it works the same way.
So yeah, and that's really important. I think, to really stress this, that the only way this communication works is that communication has to be bi-directional, right? I mean, it clearly can't be just research preaching to practitioners. It really has to be a feedback loop here, right? And that's one of the primary things you're seeking to create here with this event, correct, Richard and John?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So so we're getting toward closing time here. So I would like to give you both an opportunity for some closing thoughts. And I'm not sure exactly who would want to go first, but let's. I'll put it on Richard since he's on the phone.
And I might get dropped off at any second.
I know, that's like there's no telling when you'll disappear again. So we might as well let you have your final word. That's all good.
I think we've said it all. If we don't have practitioners there, if we don't get that input, it's a failure by my means. ISIAC conferences have been going on for a long time. We tried to bridge in the Healthy Buildings Conference research to practice. this was done to some extent back in Austin so many years ago, but we're really pushing this year. I would say is a quantum leap in trying to get ISIAC to come across the line and create that exchange and be a part of it. So we need, we absolutely are looking for your participation in every aspect of the conference.
John, pass
So
it to you.
I could probably just say it in one word: Hawaii. Think about it. We've all been locked down, unhappily so, for way too long. There is, Richard's talking about the value of getting out and the networking, but it's especially so. I've just noticed in a few things as things are starting to open up that I've been involved in. There's so much energy now. It's kind of a pent up energy and just, I see joy in people.
Is this just in your life, or is this in like just in the general public? I'm just curious.
In the both.
Okay.
I mean, well, I don't. If I'll get off on a tangent, a family tangent, we don't want to go there. But it was positive. But Hawaii obviously is a great place. It's not near. I mean, a lot of times people worry about the cost. It really isn't. I mean, you can get a flight to Hawaii from the Midwest for $600 or $700 round trip. The price
Actually from the East Coast too, John. We actually did some pricing on that. I was shocked because I was like, oh, it's going to be $1,500 to fly there. It's like, no, it isn't that much work, more expensive than going to a mainland conference.
Right. Yeah.
It's really not. Hotel prices are pretty low too, to be honest.
I was going to say the other thing, and this is where, actually COVID helped us. And that is we were able to negotiate really good pricing on hotels. The prices for the conference center were very reasonable. Hawaii does not have a great reputation for being easy to work with in terms of cost, but because of COVID and their desire to get people back on the islands, once things break, and we were very confident that things are already breaking loose and we're going to be in good shape. So I really don't think cost is, if you look at it, is going to be a difficulty for most people.
And moreover, right, than cost is what your goal for this event is admirable, and I think it only works if we can, if you can get people from both sides of the spectrum there, right? So it's important. I mean, certainly the academic representation will be fine at an ISIAC event. There's no doubt, right? But certainly the practitioner side needs to be there. I think this is an important opportunity to literally actually bridge that gap a little. So we're really excited for it. That's one of the reasons we jumped on board with you guys as one of the sponsors for the event. We definitely think it has a ton of merit.
I appreciate that.
So before we go, I just want to go over our standard propaganda here from Healthy Indoors. So obviously the Healthy Indoors live show is part of Healthy Indoors. We are a global digital media company. We do a lot of other things. At healthyindoors.com, our homepage and website, you can get to all the back issues of our magazine. And as of next month, we'll actually be 8 years in existence, which is pretty cool. So that's on the magazine tab. All the back shows for Healthy Indoors live, as well as our new show, which we just debuted just a tad ago, right? The Healthy Indoors after hour show, which is a once a month show. And we also have audio podcasts of everything we're doing. More importantly, I want to stress to everyone is the opportunity to get on our community. We have launched a online global community for the world that's indoor environmental centric. There's never been anything like this before. So we're super excited about this project. It's been in the works for a while and it's come to fruition. This is a platform that you can actually register to be part of for free. It's much more than just social media. It certainly operates like social media. You can get a look here. So it may have that look of a thread on LinkedIn or a thread on Facebook, but it's so much more. There'll be live streamed events there, meetups, actually face-to-face, virtual face-to-face, right? We can't actually stick you on the website, but the opportunity to network globally with people from your industry, from other communities. We're really excited about getting people involved with this and taking the opportunity to join it. And it's as simple as clicking on the community tab at healthyindoors.com to reserve your space. Let you know that we are bringing people in sort of a cohort model. So the idea is that we're not just letting you jump in there. So it's not like Facebook where you sign up for Facebook and suddenly you're there with 3 other billion people on the planet. We're actually going to bring you in and steward you in and invite you like you're new at the cocktail party, so you can meet some other people that may be of interest in the community. And we hope as we grow and get larger, we can continue that mindset. So we're really looking forward to having you all join us there. So click on it, and you'll be getting an opportunity to get in soon. Many of our upcoming events will be streamed there. Quick plug too, just for another ISIAC plug. ISIAC and the IEQGA, the Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance, which Don Weeks happens to be the president of, have gotten together to produce a new show. And it'll be coming out in several weeks, and we're co-hosting on that. So looking forward to doing more things like that and more ways to help tie the world together with information. So that's all our Healthy Indoors plugs. So for both Richard Shaughnessy, again, the director of the IAQ research program at the University of Tulsa, and John Downey, who is the executive director of CIRI, we're really happy you were able to join us today, and we were able to talk a little bit about the need for getting practitioners and researchers together and sharing some information, and the unique opportunity you have coming up. And just later this year, the Healthy Buildings 2021 America Conference in Honolulu. And again, it's November 9th through 11th. You still have a chance to present there, right? As we've been harping on this, but really got to drive this point home. I mean, this is an opportunity for you to actually get on stage and share your experience, your knowledge as a practitioner. So submit your abstract. You got till Monday. Get in there. So I guess with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Thank you guys for attending. We'll see you again this same bat time and channel next Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern for the Healthy Indoors live show. Again, Richard, John, thanks so much for joining us. And